Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, June 18th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. DACA recipients, also known as Dreamers, can dream another day. The Supreme Court blocked the Trump administration's efforts to end the program, protecting thousands of immigrants brought to the U.S. as children from deportation. Nadia Romero breaks down the decision and reaction from President Trump.
Crowds gather outside the Supreme Court, cheering the decision to protect the nearly 700,000 young undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as children from deportation. In a 5-4 ruling, the conservative Chief Justice siding with the liberals on the court to uphold the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, also known as DACA. The Obama administration put DACA in place in 2012. Dismantling it was a central campaign promise from President Trump in 2016.
We're always talking about dreamers for other people. I want the children that are growing up in the United States to be dreamers also. They're not dreaming.
It's the second time this week the conservative-leaning court dealt a blow to the Trump administration. The president tweeting, "These horrible and politically charged decisions coming out of the Supreme Court are shotgun blasts into the face of people that are proud to call themselves Republicans or conservatives." He continued, "Do you get the impression the Supreme Court doesn't like me?" Yet the justices gave the Trump administration a roadmap to rescind the program, saying a better explanation is needed to stop DACA. That process could take months, putting immigration front and center in the 2020 election.
Today, for the next 24 hours, I am in celebration, but the work doesn't stop here.
At the White House, I'm Nadia Romero.
And Dreamers here in San Diego are celebrating the court's decision, but acknowledge the fight for their futures isn't over. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler is live at Waterfront Park now with more. Max.
In about an hour, a coalition of immigrant advocacy groups will gather here in front of the county administration building to celebrate the DACA decision from the Supreme Court. But many of them acknowledge it's only a partial victory. It doesn't provide for permanent protection, and they'll still have to continue their fight as they go to Congress. It's entirely possible that at any point the Trump administration could once again rescind the DACA program. California is home to the highest number of DACA recipients in the country, with just over 183,000 people registered in the program. San Diego County is home to an estimated 40,000 of those young people, who now range in age from 15 to 39. Irving Hernandez is an aerospace engineer and DACA recipient who will be speaking at this evening's rally and celebration.
And I can't tell you, I was surprised. We were not expecting this at the local, state, or national level. We were preparing for the worst, but today we breathe, a sigh of relief.
Today's ruling is the second decision made by the Supreme Court this week that will have a huge impact on California's immigrant community. On Monday, it decided not to hear a Trump administration challenge to California's sanctuary laws, which limited cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. Both decisions come as huge victories for a community that has felt targeted repeatedly by the current administration. While it's a day of celebration here along the waterfront, Dreamers understand that it's going to be a long battle ahead as they take the legislation to the Congress once again to try to get more permanent protections. They're going to be fighting for both their parents as well as they move forward with their movement. But for today along the waterfront, some good energy and for once, some safety. For Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Thanks for that live report, Max. And immigration was already a key issue for the 2020 presidential race. UCSD political science professor Tom Wong says President Trump is already using it as a campaign tool for his strongest supporters.
The way that the president is playing the SCOTUS decision right now it is very clear that it is a base strategy, but it also seems to be just a very sort of particular part of his base, given poll after poll after poll showing Republican support for DACA recipients and for legal status for undocumented youth.
And President Trump also says he will update his list of potential Supreme Court nominees in case another vacancy occurs during his term. Now for an update on the coronavirus in San Diego County. For the first time, one of the triggers has been crossed. County public health officials say there have been 8 outbreaks within the past 7 days. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains what happens now.
Today we have, for the first time, crossed one of the triggers.
County health officials are putting a pause on future reopenings.
People are gathering, and not using facial coverings.
Because of that, health officials say we've had 8 community outbreaks at restaurants and private businesses within a week. That's a reopening trigger requiring corrective action by the county.
And we will be stepping up our activities of possible enforcement activities in a very targeted way.
Officials say we're also seeing outbreaks from parties at private homes and other gatherings, all activities not allowed under current health orders.
The orders that have been put in place are designed to keep us open and keep us moving, and we need the public's help. So an outbreak at a social club, the social club shouldn't have been meeting because that's not consistent with the public health orders.
And people think that they can go back to the pre-COVID-19 existence. We cannot. This virus is in the community. Some people can spread it without any symptoms.
Tattoo shops, nail salons, and massage therapy businesses are still being allowed to reopen tomorrow. But at least for now, future reopening guidance from the state won't be adopted. Officials say this is serious, as outbreaks could lead to a spike in hospitalizations.
We take this with an understanding that it could be an indication that we could be heading in a direction that is not positive.
If triggers for hospital bed space are met, we could see even more restrictions coming back. And while officials are promising enforcement of reopening guidelines, they say to beat the virus, it's ultimately up to San Diegans to wear face coverings, wash their hands, and physically distance.
Even the most robust enforcement of the public health orders will not be effective. The only thing that will be effective is if each and every San Diegan decides that they're going to do their part to help us get out of this.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
While face coverings have been required in public places in San Diego County since May 1st, the mandate is now statewide. Governor Gavin Newsom announced the order today, saying too many people are going out without covering their faces as more parts of the economy reopen. Cloth masks are required inside indoor public spaces and outdoors where it's not possible to stay 6 feet away from others. We're getting our first look at a proposed ballot measure that would create an independent commission on police practices for the San Diego Police Department. The commission would be able to subpoena the police department to look into instances of possible misconduct and make disciplinary recommendations to the police chief. Last night, youth leaders from Mid-City hosted a virtual forum about the proposed commission. 17-year-old Ananelli Alonso says protests over the killing of George Floyd and other acts of police brutality have driven up support for the measure among young people.
Just making sure that this movement stays a movement instead of a moment. We need to stop once the changes are made and once we see that these changes are working, because if we stop now, then nothing is going to come from it. We're already too deep into this to stop now.
Panelists discussed previous efforts at police accountability in San Diego and the need for a revitalized and empowered Citizens Review Board. The City Council is set to vote Tuesday on whether to place the measure on November's ballot. A week-long effort is underway to make sure every Californian gets counted in the 2020 census. And locally, the Count Me 2020 coalition is focusing on reaching the hardest-to-count communities. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us how an East County nonprofit is working to make sure recent immigrants and refugees fill out the form.
How are you? Good to see you.
A census worker in San Diego helping a senior with food and information. She's part of the Count Me 2020 campaign to make sure communities that are traditionally hard to count get counted.
We're still kind of playing it safe and deciding to keep remote for now.
Rama Awad from El Cajon's Majdal Community Center is anxious to get back into her community. That community consists of immigrants and refugees from the Middle East and North Africa who've settled in El Cajon. She says her organization is going to wait a little longer to see what happens with the COVID situation in San Diego County. That means remote work for now.
That's looked like phone banking, calling community members, helping them fill it out over the phone, or just, explaining to them what the census is.
Awad says a lot of that explaining comes in the form of reassurance to people who've come from parts of the world where giving the government personal information can be risky.
Whatever you put in this document, in this form, will remain with the Census Bureau, and it will not be shared with other government agencies.
Awad says there are also language barriers to overcome, and for recent arrivals, making sure the census form doesn't get lost with all of the other paperwork they're dealing with. Behind it all is a message of urgency, the importance of taking part in the census.
The stakes are high for residents across the U.S., but particularly high for immigrant and refugees who need to be counted so they can receive resources for schooling and healthcare and just general infrastructure.
Awad says she's encouraged. She says a good portion of the people she talks to have already filled out their census form. The deadline for all of us to get that done is the end of October. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Mail-in voting as a result of coronavirus concerns has been a political point of conflict, and today the California Assembly sent Governor Gavin Newsom a bill to require county election officials to mail a ballot to every registered voter. The bill was passed 68-5 with only Republicans in opposition. Newsom announced last month that the state will be sending mail-in ballots to every voter for the November elections, and that order was legally challenged. If the governor signs the bill, it would give the order the force of law. In-person voting places would still be available. San Diego is developing plans to allow for more outdoor dining and retail. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the goal is to help businesses facing limited capacity because of COVID-19.
Restaurants have been allowed to open for dine-in customers for about a month now, but many still can't afford to pay all their bills while also having to limit customers because of social distancing requirements. The city's proposal would expedite permitting for outdoor dining, and for a few hundred businesses, it would also waive fees that can cost a business more than $1,000. Mayor Kevin Faulkner says the program will put public space to good use.
We're talking about expanding their operations into parking lots, sidewalks, and on-street parking spots, among other spaces. One goal, it's going to allow for more seating, more customers, and more business.
Little Italy and the Gaslamp Quarter are already moving forward with plans to open streets for more pedestrian activity and outdoor dining. And North Park's business district plans on putting restaurant tables in on-street parking spots. In the past, business groups have fought to keep as much street parking as possible. But North Park Main Street Executive Director Angela Landsberg says businesses won't need any parking if they go bankrupt.
So I think it's weighing the benefits right now to the drawbacks of losing parking spaces. Right now, if you look outside, there is parking. I mean, we've got plenty of parking. People are not coming out and filling up all the spots. Let's use those spots right now to keep our businesses in business.
The program is scheduled for a city council vote on July 7th, but businesses don't have to wait. Applications are already available on the city's website. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It's been great weather for enjoying time outdoors, and it's warming up as we get closer to the weekend. Jeff Cornish has your forecast.
Well, this Thursday night, we're going to see another round of low clouds and fog return to the coastal areas. We're dealing with that persistent weather pattern here with very few changes day to day. Now, there will be a bit of a warming trend into the weekend, and the heat's going to build, especially Sunday through Wednesday of next week across the interior, when we do get back into a hotter weather pattern and it becomes more established into the inland deserts and the valleys off to the east. Tonight, though, it looks pretty pleasant and quiet. Low clouds will return to coastal areas, 60 into Oceanside, 62 into San Diego. Ramona down to 53 tonight. but will be closer to 70 in Borrego Springs. So there is a warming trend that will gradually build as this ridge of high pressure expands a bit across the southwest. There will not be any rain around areas that have been stricken by the recent fires in the interior, but the wind will relax, so perhaps that'll be a little bit of help for firefighting crews there. But locally, we do expect to stay comfortable near the coast. Highs around 71 in San Diego, still 104 in Borrego Springs. The heat is on there, but Mount Laguna up at the top of the mountain there, 73. That looks pretty nice. So the weekend forecast holds on to a dry weather pattern across much of the southwest. Storms into the south central U.S. Locally, though, for the coast, we're on track for temperatures around 73 Friday and Saturday. Low clouds each morning, and then we turn sunnier into the afternoon. So we're saying in a few different ways here, but it's a pretty similar forecast. By the time we get into Monday and Tuesday, those low clouds may be a little bit less of an issue, and the high clouds will be streaking across the sky into the middle of next week. Inland areas, 78 Friday and Saturday, warming up to the mid-80s on Monday with the heat building there. Into the mountains, we'll be in the 70s the whole time, a slow warming trend. And it's not going to be a total blowtorch, but we will get hotter into next week when we look at the desert forecast, back up to 108 Sunday, Monday, 109 Tuesday. So the deserts will be steamy, and it is going to be late June out there. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
Another 1.5 million workers filed for first-time jobless benefits last week. The Department of Labor reported the new unemployment claims today. That brings the total number of claims filed to more than 45 million since mid-March. The economy has shown signs of improvement in recent weeks as some lockdown restrictions have eased. Dr. Anthony Fauci is delivering some news fans definitely don't want to hear. Football may not happen this year. Dr. Fauci says unless players are essentially in a bubble, insulated from the community and tested nearly every day, it would be very hard to see how football will be played this fall. But the NFL is still getting ready to kick off the upcoming season as scheduled in September. The league says it's working on safety measures, including a testing program. The San Diego Zoo begins welcoming the public this weekend as the facility ends the longest closure in its 103-year history. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says it is an early sign that the region's slumbering tourist economy is starting to wake up.
Visitors will get a taste of the zoo's new normal before they even walk through the front gate.
There's one that will bring people around, and they'll come up through this way.
Erica Kohler is the San Diego Zoo's deputy director. She's standing in the parking lot in front of the main gate, and she points to the poles, ropes, and gates that will funnel visitors at safe distances until they get inside. Once inside, visitors get a combination of the familiar, like the flock of pink flamingos wading in shallow water, and they get a heavy dose of the new normal. That's mostly in the form of green and white signs that seem to be everywhere, even on the ground. All remind visitors to maintain social distance and be safe.
So we really looked at everything to make sure that we are providing a very safe and very comfortable environment for our guests.
Safety includes keeping capacity at 50% as the facility reopening is rolled out. It also means a lot of plexiglass barriers at cash registers and any place there's interaction between visitors and staff.
You'll see a lot of staff on grounds to, again, remind people of social distancing. At the elevators, making sure there's only one family group at a time in there. Our tours are only one family group. So we've really taken a really measured and strategic approach to make sure that we're looking at all our operations to make sure that they are as safe as possible for our guests.
Kohler knows that building confidence is important for building crowds, and building crowds is key to helping revive the local tourism economy. The economic sector employed 13% of San Diego's workforce before COVID-19 shut things down.
It takes time to be able to re-engineer and to reopen, to call employees back and to do training. But it's great to see more coming online.
Carrie Capich is the San Diego Tourism Authority's chief operating officer.
So it's the new normal, if you will, for where we are as a community. And obviously, we're excited to see that more and more businesses are starting to reopen because we've had so many workers who have been out of work through this crisis.
She's encouraged the zoo is reopening along with other local attractions. parks, museums, and the region's 70 miles of beaches are key lures for San Diego's third largest economic sector after the military and manufacturing. Kapich says tourism is a cornerstone of the local economy.
Many economists will tell you that this pandemic has had 9 times the economic fallout of 9/11. It'll take us time to recover as a community. It'll take us time to recover as a business sector.
People have to have confidence.
Alan Jin is an economist at the University of San Diego.
Confidence to travel, confidence then to go out and eat in restaurants, maybe in the meet in smaller groups with social distancing. Until that happens, the restaurants can open, the amusement parks can open, the hotels can reopen, but they're not going to get a lot of customers.
Jin says the tourism sector has suffered a dramatic economic shock, and it'll take a long time to rebuild. He says there's also a chance COVID-19 infection rates could climb, forcing more social limits in the fall.
As people go out, some are adhering to recommendations, but I see a lot of people then, avoiding the social distancing, avoiding wearing masks, things along those lines. And I'm worried then that we'll have a second outbreak, which will further derail the economy.
Avoiding that outcome will require diligence and persistence, the same kind of diligence and persistence the tourism sector will need to rebuild the public's trust. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park open to the public this Saturday, June 20th. A gym in the Los Angeles area is thinking inside the box to address health concerns. The owners of Inspire South Bay Fitness in Redondo created these plastic pods made out of shower curtains and PVC pipes to ensure social distancing. Research shows workout classes can pose a major risk of infection. The gym owners say the response to the workout pods has been overwhelmingly positive. Tomorrow marks the 155th anniversary of Juneteenth. The holiday commemorates the end of slavery in the U.S. With our partners at Detroit Public Media, KPBS will bring you a live coast-to-coast cultural celebration tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Facebook.com/KPBS San Diego.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the Supreme Court rejects the Trump administration's attempt to end protections for undocumented immigrants who arrived as children. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Now for an update on our top stories. Today, the Supreme Court blocked President Trump's attempt to end DACA protections. That means for now, nearly 700,000 people who were brought to the United States illegally as children are safe from deportation. San Diego County is home to an estimated 40,000 of those young people who range in age from 15 to 39. Today, San Diego County crossed one of the triggers monitored for reopening amid the pandemic. There were 8 COVID-19 outbreaks at restaurants and private businesses within a week. Tattoo shops, nail salons, and massage therapy businesses will still be allowed to open tomorrow, but future reopenings are on hold for now. The city of San Diego is making it easier for restaurants to get permits for outdoor dining. The idea is to accommodate more customers with social distancing requirements. Little Italy and the Gaslamp Quarter are moving forward with plans to open streets for strolling and eating outside. Drive-ins have been open for a few weeks, and now the outdoor cinema Under the Stars in Mission Hills reopens tonight. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando shows us some of the changes you can expect.
When Cinema Under the Stars opened in 1991, it never expected to have to shut down for a global pandemic.
I feel like suddenly life's pause button was hit and I was sucked into this grade Z science fiction movie. I was rescued by Rod Serling and now I find myself in a Twilight Zone.
Going to Cinema Under the Stars is like entering a different dimension. And anyone who's walked the red carpet to watch a movie there will recognize Ralph DeLauro as the one who rings the opening gong. The intimate outdoor venue closed in mid-March, but can now reopen with new rules in place to help prevent the spread of coronavirus. Most notable is that the zero-gravity recliners have been reduced in number and set in pairs at least 6 feet apart. Doug Yeagley owns the cinema and the adjoining top salon.
Probably the biggest challenge is just getting people to feel comfortable with the fact that we're an open air venue that only does one show a night. So we have 24 hours to completely clean and sanitize and make sure that everything is in accordance with the law.
Everyone is required to wear a mask unless seated 6 feet apart. Couples, however, are allowed to sit next to each other.
I think people respect each other a lot more here. It's not like sometimes when you get in a mall and you get large herds of people, they're not necessarily mindful of other people as much as they are here.
The cinema reopens with an audience favorite, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's one that brings people together. And that's been Doug's vision from the very start of Cinema of the Stars.
Now, people can come together with the proper social distancing to once again enjoy a movie as a shared community experience.
Cinema has always been mass entertainment. I mean, that's how cinema works. It's projected on a big screen in the dark with an audience. That's where the magic happens.
Raiders of the Lost Ark plays through Sunday with Roman Holiday and Casablanca to follow. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.